So welcome everybody to the Zotero Basics webinar. I'm Trish Pearson. I'm one of the reference and instruction librarians here at Walden. Lynn Ben Lear is also with me, another reference and instruction librarian, and she's going to be answering questions kind of behind the scenes, and also if there are questions that are going to be good for everyone to know the answers to, then she'll go ahead and I'll be stopping at various points, or she may interrupt me to get those questions answered.
Oh, I just want to point out also, I did just add the captioning link into the chat section. So if you need captioning, the link is in there.
Awesome. All right, so what we're going to be doing today for this webinar, and it's a ton of information. So, I know it can feel very overwhelming. You will be getting the recording again, so you can go back over it, and we will be, there is a link to a guide that we have put together for Zotero that is linked in the PowerPoints. Maybe Lynn can go ahead and pop that into chat as well, just so you have it. So you do have some resources to go back and look at. I know it can seem like a whole ton of information really, really fast, but we've not figured out a better way to do this yet. So what we'll be doing is we'll be looking at some different settings for Zotero that are going to be really useful and make Zotero more functional for you. Be looking at how you get things into Zotero from databases and also from Google Scholar. And once you get them in there, how you're going to edit those resources if you need to, and how you can organize them just to make it more functional for you. Because, you don't want just like a ton of things all just kind of piled into Zotero and not be able to find the things you need. So there are different ways to organize, things that may work better for you. And then the part that everyone loves, how you can use Zotero with Word or another word processing program to create InText citations and reference lists. All right, so a little bit just about Zotero in general. It is a totally free open source software, which is great. What that does mean is, unlike these paid products, you don't get that kind of tech support where you can call up people and have them walk you through stuff. You have to do a little bit of that on your own again. If you're having issues with things, I'll be pointing out where you can find forums and documentation that will help you kind of figure out your issue and be able to solve it. But you don't have that kind of hand-holding type thing when you've got free software like this. So it's the pros and cons. Free, yay. Not like kind of hand-holding type tech support. Yeah. So if that's an issue for you, that is something to consider. We do have a link here for the Zotero download page. So you can go ahead and download that. It does work with many different operating systems. So it does work with Windows, Macs, Linux. You want to make sure that you install a browser connector, just because that is a very helpful thing, so that when you're using Firefox or Chrome or Safari or whichever browser that you're using, you're able to just, from that browser, save things really easily into Zotero. If you're using a mobile device, the browser connectors don't really work so well, but they do have what they call bookmarklets. And those would be for the different mobile devices out there. And you need to go to the Zotero site to see, do they have a bookmarklet for the device that I'm using? Okay, great. And they will have information there on how you install these things and how you can use them. The thing that I'm going to highly, highly, highly recommend, and I'll repeat this at various points throughout the webinar, as Lynn well knows, you really, really want to create a free account at Zotero, and that's just www.zotero.org. The reason for the free account is not only does it let you post your questions to the forums if you're having some sort of issue and you want to get an answer, but you can set up Zotero so that it will sync your information from the desktop version that you're downloading to your computer onto their web-based version. So if you ever had any kind of computer issues, like your computer crashes or whatever, you're not going to totally lose everything that you've saved on your computer in Zotero. If you're syncing it to the web, you've got that backup of the web there, the web-based version that saves your stuff for you. And then you're able later, when you get a new computer, to go back, re-download Zotero, and then you can sync it up again, and all your stuff will magically appear on that desktop version. And if you are away from your computer, you're able to use that web version as well. It's a little more stripped down, so it doesn't have all of the functionality, but you can definitely, be out there searching and saving stuff either way, and then sync it back to the desktop so that you've got stuff in both places at the same time. All right, so what we'll be looking at is we're going to look at just generally kind of how Zotero is laid out, some of the different items that you'll see. A lot of citation software is very, very similar. So, if you kind of understand how one works, then you're going to understand how many of the others work as well. There'll always be differences there because they are different software, but you're going to see a lot of things that are also quite similar. So we'll be looking at where things are on the toolbar. We're going to be looking at some of those different settings that are going to be really useful to you, like where you set up that sync information. Once you set up your totally free account with Zotero, how you set things up so that you can actually use like Word or another word processor to do those in-text citations. And so we'll be looking at a variety of that stuff. And again, how to get things in your library, how to edit them, how to organize them. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into Zotero so you can see what that looks like. And this is my Zotero library, and this is a program that is on my computer. Just got it open here now. So you will see that many of the citation softwares are going to be very similar to this. Often they're divided kind of into 3 sections. Sometimes they're called columns, sometimes they're called panes. On the left side, there'll be kind of navigation-y sort of things. So you'll see this has my library and some different folders and such there. In the middle section, there's a big giant list of all the items that are in my library. If you click on any one of these items, then what you'll see on that right side or right column or right pane is more detailed information about that particular item. And this is going to tell you things like whether it's a journal article or a book chapter or whatever it is, give you the title, authors, sometimes abstracts if those are available when you're pulling stuff in. It's going to give you all the different citation information, where it was published, when, the volume, issue, etc. If DOI numbers are available, you'll see those. If not, you're going to see a blank space there. So it's kind of how this works. There is a little toolbar that kind of runs across the top of that. So you're going to see a bunch of different icons there. If you put your mouse cursor over, typically you're going to see it open up a little item that will tell you like kind of what that folder or what that icon is for. So here on the left, above that left column, there's a little folder looking icon, and you can see if I put my mouse cursor over it, it will tell you new collection. So that's where you'd be able to add folders to your library. Above the middle section, there are some other little icons up here, so you can see that you can manually add something to Zotero. So maybe there's something that you already have and you've got the information and you want to manually add it, you can do that. The little paperclip item will allow you to add an attachment. So maybe you have added through the databases something that didn't have like a PDF available and you were able to find that PDF somewhere else. You would be able to use that little icon to attach it to the record that's in here. All right. So then I'm going to talk a little bit about these different settings that can be really, really useful. And to get to most of those, what you want to do is go up to the little menu on top that has File, Edit, Tools, and Help, and click on Edit. And you'll see that there is, in the little box that opens, Preferences is a selection, and we're going to click on Preferences. And this is where you can set up a lot of different preferences for Zotero. under the tabs that are on the top of the box that opens, you'll see general, and this is just stuff like you can set it to have the font size not be small, so you don't have the teeny tiny little print. You can make it extra large if you wanted, or medium, or whatever. There's a lot of different information in here too about things like automatically retrieving metadata for PDFs, etc. A lot of that is just better if you just kind of leave it set as like the default stuff, because these are all going to be things that are going to be fairly helpful. But you may want to go back and look at some point and decide, does this work for me, or is this something I want to change? So we talked about creating the free, absolutely free account with the Zotero. If you look under the sync tab, this is where you can actually set up that information. And you'll see, because I've already got mine linked up, that it tells me username and it's got my name. There's a little thing where I can unlink it if I wanted to. If you're setting this up, you're going to see it. You're going to see an option here where it's available to like link up your account. And the Zotero account is going to be whatever you want to use there for like your username and password, but you're just going to need to put that information in here. The default options are to sync automatically, which I highly would recommend, because that way you don't have to try to remember to like, oh yeah, I need to go ahead and sync this information. So Zotero's just going to kind of constantly do that for you in the background. So anything that you're adding into this library here on the desktop is actually going to just automatically get synced to that web-based version once you set up that free account. All right. So then the other feature you want to make sure that you go ahead and set up is under the Site tab. And this is something where you are able to choose the style, which is always going to be APA 6th edition. And I've already added that in there, so we're not going to go ahead and do that. But that's where you would choose that, and that's where Zotero will then know, once you set up with the word processor, that the APA 6th edition is what you want. There's another little tab in this particular area for site word processor. So if we click on that, you can see that you have the option of Microsoft Word or LibreOffice, which is an open source software for word processing. So that's where you would go ahead and set those up. And then under the Advanced tab, the other thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to look down about the middle of the box that opens there under Advanced for Open URL. And there's a box for Resolver, and you can see that there is a URL in there now. And this is Walden's Open URL Resolver. And what this does is it tells Zotero that you are a student at Walden, you have access to the stuff in the Walden library, and this is the URL that that you use to do that, to tell Zotero that. What this will do for you is there is an option, and I'll be showing you that in a bit, to, if you have something in here, you can tell it to like look in our library to see if there's full text. So maybe you're out and you're finding information from other places, not the library, and you're pulling it into your Zotero library, and then you want to see, oh, well, does the Walden Library have that? Well, you could take that information and you could go and search in the library, or you can just click a little button and you can tell Zotero to kind of do that work for you. But that it will only work if you've got this Open URL Resolver in here. And we do have a link in the PowerPoint to the place where that lives, and I'll also be showing you that in a bit. So don't worry about trying to, hastily scribble this all down. It's much easier to just go to the guide where we've got it and copy and paste it in. So those are some of the definitely more useful settings that you're going to want to just be aware of and know that those are things that you're going to want to go ahead and set up. And I'll go ahead and close that out. Again, that is going to be under Edit and Preferences, and it's going to open that box for you so that you can set all that stuff up. All right, I'm going to stop here to see if we have any questions before we jump into learning how to add stuff and edit it.
There are no questions. Forge ahead.
Woohoo! All right. I hope that's a good thing. I hope it doesn't mean everybody is all totally confused. All right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and jump over into the library databases. And I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these folders first, just because I want things to get saved in that particular folder. All right. And since these databases like to time me out, I'll just have to get in here and just do a super quick search. And we're just doing whatever here. It doesn't really matter what you're doing or which database that you're going to search in the library. This is going to work for any of those. So we'll go ahead and just run a quick search here. Just want to get some search results so you can see how this works. Okay, so you're in the library, you're in a database, you're doing some searching, you're getting some results. You've also downloaded Zotero and you've downloaded a browser connector. I'm using Firefox currently, but you can add connectors for Chrome, or if you're on a Mac, you can add connectors for Safari, so whichever of those browsers you're using. If you are using Internet Explorer or the Microsofty kind of things, it really does not play well with Zotero at all. So you're going to have to use a different browser, unfortunately. So, all right. So once you've got the search going, what you will do then is you've got the connector installed. You'll see a little icon. It's going to be towards the top of the page. You'll see that address bar at the top of your browser page. If you look to the right, there is a tiny little icon. And this is not something that you necessarily would look at and just say, oh yeah, that must be Zotero. What Zotero does is the icon will change depending on what sorts of items that you can save. So you may see a folder like this. And what that means is you can save multiple items because we're looking at the search page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the little folder icon. And if you hover your mouse cursor over it, typically it's going to tell you something about Zotero there too. So, all right. And that will open another little box and you'll see the first page of results. And we can just randomly go ahead and click on a few of these. And you'll just click in the little box in front of each item that you want so that you see a check mark there. And once you go ahead and do that, you can go to the bottom of the box and click on OK. And what that is doing is telling Zotero, I want to save all of these items into my library. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then what you'll see is another little kind of dialog box that pops open, and it will tell you that it is saving to that particular folder that we picked, the test folder. If you thought, oh no, I want to save it someplace else, you can click the little arrow and change the folder right there. And then you'll see it just kind of walking through, like, these are the things I'm saving. For some of them, you'll see there are PDFs that are available that Zotero is able to save. And so it's grabbing those for you. And for others, there's not. And so you're not going to get the full text there. So that may be something that you'd want to go back later and try to double check and see if you can find it somewhere else. Right. And it'll just sit there saying that it's saving to this until it's actually done saving. So we can just kind of ignore it. So that's how you save multiple items. And then if you wanted to save, just like you're looking at the search and you're thinking, yeah, you know, I've already found some of these and I really only need the one thing. What you can do then is just pick that particular item in the search results and click on the title. And what that will do in this particular database is just open up a page that's giving you more information about the article and a little abstract. And here, what we do is go back up to the top of the page to the right of the address bar. And now you won't see that folder because we're not looking at a whole bunch of different items. We're only looking at one thing. Now the little Zotero icon has changed to what looks like a piece of paper. So that's telling us that we're just looking at one item. And we can go ahead and click on that piece of paper. And you'll see that it's telling us it's saving that one item to that folder that we chose. So boom. And that is how easy it is once you've got Zotero installed and the connector to go ahead and save things when you're out there searching. So do we have any questions about this?
No questions so far, Trish. Seems to
All
be
right.
very clear, very clear.
Okay, great. All right, so this is how you save things from the database. And I've had people say, well, what if I'm not in the database? What if I'm looking somewhere else? Zotero does work other places. So we will go and we will actually take a quick look at Google Scholar so that you can see. And what I'm going to do is just type in a little search here. Just do something so we come up with some items. And you'll see we've done the search in Google Scholar and we've got some results showing up here. And if we go back up to the right of that address bar, we can see our little folder icon is showing up here because we're looking at search results. And if I click on that folder icon, boom, you'll see that it's got like the first 10 or so results listed. And we can go ahead and just click on any of the items that we think we want to save. Let's pick a few. And then you go ahead and click on the OK button down in the bottom corner. And then again, you'll see that little box that kind of opens up and it will tell you that Zotero is saving the stuff that we've picked from Google Scholar into our test folder in our library. So again, and Zotero can save like web pages. So if you're out there and you're looking at something like Department of Labor Statistics website or whatever, and you want to save like a page there so you can get back to it later, you can go ahead and save it. You'll just see a different looking icon for a web page, but it's because as you know, as I said, Google Scholar will change depending on what you can save. Um, so you'll be able to go ahead and save that kind of a little snapshot, and then you can find your way back to that later. So Google Scholar, Zotero can just save like all kinds of different things and not just the library databases. All right, so once we've gotten things into Zotero, and you'll see that since we had clicked on test folder, these are all the things that we've added and that are getting added in as we go. So you'll see that kind of little list there of things. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and click on something that's a journal article. So once we do that, again, you're going to see on that right pane or column or side the more detailed information about that particular item. So if you want to edit or change any of this information for any reason, you would just go ahead and click on the field that you wanted to. So let's say for some reason the information about the journal, maybe the title is slightly different or something like that, and you needed to change it, you could just click and you'll see that you're able then to move your cursor around and you could go ahead and change any of that information that you wanted to. The one nice thing is for title, because we, of course, here at Weldon are all about APA, you'll see that this is a title that is more in what's called title case, that it's got the capital letters. And we know for APA that that is not something that we want. So what you can do here is you could either click into it and you could go ahead and manually like change all of the capital letters down to small where it needs to be. Or with Zotero, what you can do is you can right click on that actually, and it will give you an option to transform text. And there you can pick what's called sentence case, which means that it's going to change. It's going to keep the capital C for the first part of this title, challenging the gendered academic hierarchy, and it's going to change the rest of those things down to small case. So if it's a really long title, that can be quite handy because then you don't have to go in and manually change all that. You would just go ahead and right click. Let's pick another one. Go ahead and right click on the title, transform text, and pick sentence case. Boom. If you do have something where you've got like a colon in another part of the title, you may have to go in and play around with that manually and fix it. Or if you end up with any kind of proper nouns that it will change to small case, you may have to go back in and put the capital back too. but at least this gives you an option of not having to manually like change all the things. And I highly recommend just as you're putting stuff in the library that, you know, any of the stuff like the title that you're changing to the APA format, just so it's already right the way that you're going to want to use it later in citing things. That way you're not having to like manually change your citation information in a Word document all the time. It's just going to be nicely set up for you the way that you need it. Okay. All right, so then the other thing that I wanted to show you really quick too is we talked a little bit about items that may not have like a PDF with it and you wanted to manually add that. So let's say that you found the PDF for this someplace later. What you can do is you can go up here to this little paperclip icon and say attach a stored copy of a file and add it that way. If you have a bunch of PDFs that you've already saved that you want to just add in to Zotero, let's get to my desktop here. Minimize all the things. What you can do too that's really nice is that you can just drag and drop things in. So let's say you had like several PDFs from someplace else that you've got that you want to save in your Zotero library. You can just grab those and you can drag and drop them into the folder that you want it to be in. And what Zotero will then do is it will search for the information about that item. So if you've got the PDFs, instead of like putting in the information and then manually attaching the PDF, you can just drag it in there and Zotero is going to go out and say, oh, let me see what information I can find about this particular PDF. And so you can see here, we've got it attached and we've got all this different information, the title, the authors, the publication, DOI number, etc. Zotero has been able to search and find that from just dragging the PDF in, which is actually pretty fabulous, I think. So that can be quite handy when you've got those PDFs that you want to add in. All right, so the other couple things I wanted to show you here are above this section on the right, there is a tiny little arrow pointing to the right, and you can go ahead and click on that to open up more options. So here, if there is a PDF that's attached to the particular item, you can just click on View PDF to open the PDF and look at it from there. Or as I talked about with that open URL resolver that you want to set up in your preferences, you can do the library lookup. You would click on that, and what Zotero would then do, because it knows that you have access to the Walden Library, is it will look to see, can it find that information about the item in the library, and can it find the full text? So if you're pulling in a bunch of stuff from other places where you don't have the full text there, just clicking on that library lookup can actually be really helpful to see, can I find full text for this item? You'll see also cross-ref lookup, which I always like to just point out to people and explain a little bit. I've had people think that it will just like take you to cross-ref and look for the DOI and find it. Actually, what it's doing is it's just doing more of that same kind of looking for information about the item. So it is not something where it's just taking you to that DOI search on Crossref. It is using information that Crossref is using behind the scenes, kind of, you know, back behind all the stuff that they're pulling information in from. And it's just another way to like look to see if you can find that information. Sometimes you do actually find the DOI that way, but not always. So it's not like the shortcut way to never have to go to Crossref and look up your DOI numbers. So just like to make people aware of that, just so you know what it is and what it does and what it does not do. All right, so I'm going to stop and just see if we've got any questions before.
Well, we did have one question, Trish, about is there a limit on how many items can be saved in Zotero?
There is, and I always forget exactly what it is. If you go to the Zotero website, you can easily find it. You are able, to purchase additional storage for like a fairly reasonable price from Zotero. A lot of different free citation management softwares will let you do that, purchase the extra storage. As you can see from my library, I have quite a few things in here and quite a few PDFs that are associated with these. I have not run into that issue of the storage yet. So I know that you can store quite a few things. If you're working on something huge like a dissertation where you've got a whole lot of citations and a whole lot of PDFs, plus you're doing other projects, maybe you're writing articles and maybe classwork, etc., so that you end up with a whole lot of things in there. Yeah, you may run into that where eventually you're going to hit a point where it's going to say, yeah, you're out of storage, but it offers quite a lot, quite a hefty bit of
I
free
actually just
storage.
ran and looked this up. It's 300 megabytes.
Okay, so there you go.
So I know, because I was like, I don't know either. So,
Yeah, and they've
so,
changed that a
and I
little bit
just
over time
dropped,
too. So
oh, I just dropped the link in, drop the link into the chat here for everybody to see the storage costs.
excellent. Yeah,
Excellent.
it's pretty reasonable. I mean, it's not like they're price gouging people for storage. So if you did need extra, then that is definitely an option as far as that goes. Okay, so talking about kind of organizing things and how Zotero is working here. So on the left side under my library, this little section over here, you'll see that I've got a variety of different folders set up. And you can add as many folders as you want. You can actually add subfolders to folders or subfolders to folders. You can just keep kind of going. So there are a couple different ways to do that. If you wanted to add a folder to my library, you'll see above that section, there's a little icon that looks like a folder with a plus. If you click on that, and they call folders collections, you'll see a little box that opens that says new collection, and you can enter a name for the collection. So we can put, we'll just do another test folder. So once you've got the folder's name entered that you want, you can click OK, and you'll see that now we have not only our test folder, but our test2. And if we wanted to do a subfolder, you would just right click there and you would say sub collection. So we can say testing. So you'll see that then there's a subfolder and you can keep going with that. So you can end up with a crazy amount of folders and subfolders, etc. Something to know about Zotero is that my library is everything that you've put into Zotero ever. The folders are really only a way to organize things. It's not like if you put something from your library into one of these folders, that it's going to disappear from my library. It will always be here. Everything that you put into Zotero will always be in this middle My Library section. It's just really dragging a copy into the other folders just to help organize it and help make it easier for you to find things on a particular topic. And if you wanted to drag something from your library into any of these folders, we can definitely do that. You just kind of click on it to grab it, and then you would just drag it to whichever folder that you wanted to put it in and let go, and it's going to show up in there. So if we look there, you'll see that it's in there now at this top part. So yeah, so anything from your library, you could put them in like several different folders if you wanted to. And it will always, everything will always still be in that My Library section. It's just that they're also going to be in these other folders as well. So it just makes it easier to find things. Something that I wanted to point out here too is there is a little section here for duplicate items. So let's say, good, we do have some, yay. So let's say I got a little overzealous in adding things from the library databases, and I added things more than once. Like, oh, whoopsies. What I could do is go ahead and click on one of the duplicate items, and you'll see in that column on the right, there's a little thing that says merge two items. So we can go ahead and we can merge both of those. And a lot of times it will tell you that you've added these at different times, so you can pick which version that you want to keep. just going to say the last one. So, and you can see now, boom, it has gone ahead and it's merged. So, all right. So the thing with this middle section, this My Library that has all of the information that you've ever put into Zotero, you can go ahead and you can sort things here alphabetically. So you'll see now that really mine is set up to be alphabetical by title. A couple of these are at the top just because one has like a little quote in front and one is starting with a number, and then it starts with the A's and goes down. If I click on this title heading at the top, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to change it so that it is actually sorting from the bottom up. So now if I go all the way up to the top, you'll see it's starting with the Z's. And if I click on it again, you'll see it's gone back to starting with the A's. You can do the same thing with your authors, and that field heading is called Creator. So let's say we wanted to alphabetize things by author because you wanted to look for some particular authors. You can go ahead and click that, and it's going to sort that alphabetically by author for you. And then if you decided, oh, yeah, now I'm going to go back to, I want it to be by title, you would just click on title and it's going to sort it that way for you. So you can go back and forth, you know, just however it's going to make it easier for you to find things. So, all right. And then the last part of the organizing that I wanted to show you before we get into looking at the citation, the InText citation and reference list part, which is always very, very popular with people, is once you've clicked on any of these records in this middle section, the detailed information that you see on the right, there are some little tabs across the top of that too. It's going to default to info because it's going to give you all this information about the particular thing, but you do have some options here as far as organizing things. You can add a note. So maybe you're working on something like Capstone where you've got a conceptual framework and you're wanting to kind of make notes about that so that you can find that information later. You can also add tags. Zotero does often, especially with the EBSCO company databases, it pulls across subject terms as tags. So often you're going to see that there's a bunch of tags that are already there. And you're going to think, I didn't add those tags. Where did they come from? Well, that's going to be where it's pulling that information from the database. So you can either keep these and use them, or you can say, no, I don't really care about low input systems. That's not a thing that I'm ever going to care about or look at. You'll see that with these little tags that are added in, there's a minus sign to the right, and you can click on that to get rid of those. And you just click on add to go ahead and add any kind of tag that makes sense to you, that's going to work for you to find things. Related is something I've not really used much, but what it will do is it allows you to show that there are connections between things. So what Zotero really recommends us for are things like if you've got a bunch of book reviews that relate to a book and you've got all those items in your library, you can show that there's that relationship there for those, or like book chapters to a book or something like that. And they do have more information on their website about that particular feature and how it works. And if you are using something like the tags, you'll see that over here on the left, underneath all that folder information that we looked at earlier, there's like a alphabetical list, and what this is these are all of the tags that Zotero has. And a lot of these actually are not ones I've put in, they're ones that Zotero has pulled across from the databases. So if you wanted to find something that was tagged here, we could go ahead and click on any of them. And you'll see that anything that has that particular tag is going to show up in the middle. So because I've not really done these, I don't have many that are like particularly, I guess, useful showing up down here. So, you know, the automatic tags may be something that if you're going to use the tagging that you want to really go in and sort of get rid of a lot of those and then, you know, pick things that are going to be a bit more useful as far as how things are going to work for you. All right, so do we have any questions? questions about any of this before we move on to the in-text citations and references?
I see no questions, Trish.
All right.
Let's go to the fun stuff. Woohoo!
Yes, I know. All right, so I am going to just open up a Word document where I have randomly copied a paragraph from someplace that I don't even know where at this point. So this is not about the actual text here. This is just about how you can add the citation. So I've had people ask questions about it, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know. It's just random. Sometimes we just randomly add things in here that just are a whole bunch of letters that don't really even make sense. So it doesn't really matter. All right, so once you've downloaded Zotero and you've got Zotero open and you've added that connector for whichever word processing software that you're using, you will see, and here I have a Word document open, that Zotero is an item that is showing up here in the toolbar. So we can click on Zotero, and what that will do is open up the Zotero toolbar. And this is where you're going to be able to add in-text citations and then add a bibliography. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor where I want a citation to be, and I'm going to click on Add Edit Citation up here in the Zotero toolbar. And you'll see it is popping open kind of a long skinny box that you can type in. So what you can do is you can either, if you know the author or the title of the item, you can just start typing that information, and you'll see that Zotero is going to open up anything that's got those particular letters. Since I just typed 2, it's pulling up a whole lot of crazy stuff. Typically, you're going to have a little bit more information there. So what I'm going to do is just pick anything from this list, and you'll see that it's popped that in, and now I'll go ahead and hit my Enter key to go ahead and put that in as an in-text citation. So it's showing up right there. I'm going to go to the next place that I want to put a citation, and typically you'll be doing this kind of as you're typing, so probably you're not going to have like a giant document that you're going to have to go back and insert things in. You'll just be doing it as you go. So I'm putting my cursor where I want it. I'm going back to that Add Edit Citation option in the toolbar, and you'll see the box opens again. There is another way that you can do this, and I'll show you. You'll see that at the front of this box, there's a little Z for Zotero and a tiny little arrow pointing down. If you click on that arrow, you can choose Classic View as an option. Oh, excuse me. And what Classic View does is it almost opens up, I like to think of it as just a tiny mini Zotero library. So you'll see the folders are listed here. The information is listed about the articles. So let's say we wanted some things from that test folder that we did earlier. You can go ahead and you can say, oh yeah, here's the thing I need. Well, let's say that you have multiple items from this folder that you're using for that particular citation. At the bottom of the little box that opens, this tiny mini library, there is an option for multiple sources. You can click on that. And you'll see it opens another kind of little box on the right to get things from this middle section where it's listing the different items in that folder. What you want to do is you want to click on the particular item, and then you'll see between the kind of middle section and the right section, there's a little arrow that points right. So you want to click on that arrow because you're telling it pull the thing from the middle over here to the right. And we can go ahead and click on another thing, click on the arrow, and we'll click on one more thing and click on the arrow. So now it has pulled like 3 items from that middle section over here into the right. And then you would go down to the bottom of the box and click on OK. We're done. And so boom. And now you'll see that it's put like all of those different things in there as a citation. And I'll just do one more of these. Go back up to the Add Edit Citation in the toolbar. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that little down arrow again to pick Classic View and open the tiny mini library. And I'm just going to go ahead and pick one thing this time. So we'll just click on one and then click on the little button that says OK. And you can see, boom, it's popped that item in there. So now, typically you're going to open a whole new page for this, but I'm just going to key down a couple so that we have a little break there. Once you've got all of your citation information in here and you want to add your reference list, or as they call it, bibliography, you would go back up to the toolbar and you would click on Add Edit Bibliography. And you'll see now that what it has done is it has pulled all the information from the citations that we put in, and it has created in alphabetical order this lovely little reference list or bibliography. And you'll see that it is really just using things as they are in Zotero. So since we didn't change like this title down to the sentence case, it's going to show up the way that we've left it there. And you can go ahead and manually change it here. But this is why I think as you're putting stuff in your library, if you just remember to kind of edit things like the title right then you don't have to worry about having to go back and manually change it later when you're actually creating citations in the reference list. You can just have it be the way that you need it to be there, and then you can have it show up here correctly. All right, so do we have any questions about this?
Not seeing any at the moment.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this document then.
I do have a question about in the library. There was somebody that had a question for back in the library.
Okay.
She wants to know if what are the blue dots along the right side of the list of articles in the library?
Okay, you'll see that there is a tiny little paper clip icon up here at the top, like where the sort of heading things are. And all that means is there's some kind of an attachment here for this. So if
And
we
you'd
click
think
on the little
I'd
arrow,
remember that after as many times as I've done this with you, but I totally forgot.
so in front of each of these things, you'll see that there is like a tiny little arrow that's pointing to the right. If you click on that, what it's going to do is open that up so that you can see, oh, look, here's a PDF. And that's what that little blue dot is for. It just means there's something that's added to that. So, and if we went ahead and clicked on the next one, boom, you'll see, yeah, look, there's a PDF there. So that's all that is. It's just showing you, oh, look, all of these things with blue dots have the PDFs. Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. I think it helps if you just kind of go into Zotero and just play around a bit and just look at some of the stuff and go, oh, that's what that is. And I will be showing you their webpage so that you can see like where you can find information, a lot more information about how to use Zotero, all these different features, and again, if you're having tech issues, like where you would post to the forum. All right.
And a follow-up question on that is
Okay.
some have arrows but not dots. What does that mean?
Some have arrows but not dots. Oh, like at the beginning part of these?
Is that?
Yeah, so you'll see that with the arrow, that means that there's something associated with this, but it's not necessarily like a full text item. So they're not viewing that as an attachment. So this has like a little EBSCO record, which just means that it has information that it's pulled across from EBSCO, but it's not technically like an attachment because it's not a PDF. So if you see the little arrows, that means there's something there, and it might even be something like a note. If you've created a note, let's see if I can find one. Yeah, here. So this is one where you see this weird little icon thing here. This is just a note that I randomly created at one point for people during one of these webinars. So, and in that note, I just put evidence-based practice information. So, and if we click on that, what that's going to show is it's going to go back to like the note field over here instead of the information, and it's just going to show that the notes has evidence-based practice information. And if we clicked on notes, you'd see there it is. So it's just showing you something is here, but if you don't see that the dot in that far right little section, then it just means it's not going to be like a PDF or some other kind of document like that. Okay. So do we have any other
No,
questions about stuff like that?
we're good.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do then is I want to get into the Zotero website so you guys can see that. Okay. So this is the Zotero website, and you can see that if you get to the Zotero home, that it's going to give you that option right there of being able to download stuff. And it's going to tell you, yeah, Mac, Windows, Linux, if you're running Linux, whatever kind of version of things that you've got, there's usually an option. So, and if you get to the download page, it's going to give you more options for things like the connectors for your browser, or if you're using the mobile devices, the bookmarklets, etc. So that's where you're going to go to get all the good Zotero stuff. I've already signed in to my account, so you'll see that my name is up here instead of sign in. If we click on my library, little tab at the top, this is what the web-based version of the library looks like. So you'll see, since we added test 2, like right here during the webinar, it has synced over because I've got it set to automatically sync. So that folder is showing up there, and the stuff that is in test, etc. So anything new that we put into Zotero during the webinar, it synced it automatically, and it's showing up here in this online version. And you can see it's a little more basic. It's not got like all of the options that you're going to see in the desktop version, but you can definitely still use this to add things. So it is an option, and it does give you a great backup in case you ever have any issues. I get a little paranoid about that. I had one catastrophic computer crash once, and that was enough forever. So hopefully not ever happening again. But yeah, you don't want to lose stuff that you've spent a lot of time working on. If there's a way to back stuff up, then I say do it, especially when it's free. So you might as well set up the account. It really is super fast and simple and easy, and then you've got that sort of peace of mind of knowing that if your computer crashes, you've got your stuff someplace else. Okay, so we've talked about the whole issue with tech support and how the library can't, provide all this extensive tech support for Zotero. So a couple different places you can get information here on the Zotero website. There is a tab for documentation, and what this is just a lot of information about how to do things with Zotero. So it's going to tell you frequently asked questions. It's going to give you information on like how to add things, how to get information from PDFs, how if you're using some other citation management software and you want to import your stuff into Zotero, it's going to tell you importing from other reference managers. So let's say you are using something else, you decide Zotero is better, you like it, you're going to go with that. Boom, click on that information to that link to get more information about how you can get your stuff from another software into this one. Again, collection and tags and searching and sorting and all kinds of information here. We weren't able to get into like all of this stuff today just because, we only have an hour and, you can only cover so much stuff. But this will give you a lot more information and a lot of other features that Zotero has that we couldn't get into. So then forums is also an option up here on the top. It's a tab you can click. So if we click on forum, what that will do is open up the forum section. And if you're having technical issues, this is always where I tell people to go first. Go to the forums and see. So here what you can do is you can just look through. It's going to give you the more recent things that are going on. And if you're having a recent problem, a lot of times other people are having that same recent problem. And so you may see, oh, look, an error message about updating the document. That's exactly what's happening to me. Oh, and you could go ahead and click on that. And a lot of times what you'll see is that somebody else is having that problem, and then someone is going to offer information through the forums about how to fix it. Sometimes those will be people who are working with Zotero, sometimes are other people because it's an open source product. There are a lot of people who also volunteer. So you may get information from lots of different places, and you may get like multiple different things that you can try. But at least that's a place to start, you know. So looking through this just to see, okay, is there information about my problem? If you don't see it just listed right there, there's a little search box up at the top of the page. So you could go ahead and type in, like, let's say you were trying to figure out something that was going on because you're using Office 365. And so we'll go ahead and search, and you can see that then you're getting information here, and there's something from 6 days ago where somebody's having problems with Office 365. So you could go ahead and click on that and see, are they having the same problem as me? And if yes, then there you go. Chances are good that you're going to get some really good advice from the people who are either working with Zotero or volunteering with Zotero on how to fix that particular thing. So again, this is really, if you're having tech problems, this is where we're going to point you, you know, so you might as well just go there and start first. And that's just, as I said, kind of that trade-off with, you know, totally free software. You know, the price is that sometimes you have to put a little more work in yourself instead of having somebody kind of walk you through like the tech support end of it. Zotero has been around for a really long time though, and it is really, it's pretty robust, and I've actually not had a lot of tech issues with it, so knock on wood. I've not had a lot of students who've complained that it's really glitchy and stuff like that either. So, you know, I think it's a pretty decent product, especially, again, for being free. So, all right, the other thing I wanted to show you was, we talked about that Zotero guide. So if you're on the library homepage, you can click on this big library skills button, and you'll see on the left, build library skills, little box, and a library skills guide link. So you can go ahead and click on that link. And what this will do is open a page that's got a lot of different library guides. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom of the alphabetical list, you'll see Zotero working at the bottom. Problem with something starting with Z. So we'll go ahead and click on that guide link, and you'll see that this is the Zotero guide. It's got a lot of the information that we talked about already today in the webinar, plus more. And if you are wanting that open URL resolver link, there is a little section on the left, full text and open URL. If you go ahead and click on that, it will tell you a little bit more about the open URL, and it will give you that open URL just right there. And you can just go ahead and just copy and paste that back into preferences in Zotero. And so there you're going to go to just edit and then preferences and look for the open URL section. It's going to be under advanced. All right. And we do have a variety of other guides listed there. We have just a general citation management software guide in that list of guides. Go back to that page. Go up to the C's. So if you're just wanting just more general information about citation management software, that's a great place to go to. And eventually, the webinar that we've done today will end up linked on that Zotero guide. We do try to link our webinars that go with the guides on the guides themselves too. So that's another place that you'll have that option to access it later, aside from just the email that you will be getting from GoToWebinar tomorrow. All right, so do we have any other questions? Looks like we're just a couple minutes over.
No, I was just going to point out we had some people wanting to review a couple things, but I noted that they're going to get the recording in the mail or an email, so they
Yeah,
can
yeah.
rewatch sections that were a little confusing.
Okay, great, wonderful. Yeah, just because we are just slightly over time too, so I hate to drag things out here. All right, well, thanks so much everyone for for coming today. And again, I know that this is like a ton of information in a short amount of time. So again, we do have that guide that has a lot of the information we talked about, and it's got some short videos in there. And we will be sending out the recording, and that will come to you tomorrow at some point. So be watching for that email. And again, if you don't see that, then check your junk or spam folder too, just to make sure it didn't end up there. Alrighty, great. All right, well, since we're just a tad bit over, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody go if we don't have any other questions.
No, we're good. Thank you so much,
All
Trish.
right,
Great,
great.
great information.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Okay.